social and environmental justice, especially as an integrated value of the economic system, has been the center of interest and attention of many philosophers and thinkers in modern history. These socioeconomic discussions that run through these centuries, the latest centuries, has led to this wide perception of the state as an institution that gathers under its protection all these problems and address them centrally. And in the best case, it is complemented by non-profit organizations. However, what we can observe through modern history, especially through the modern economic crisis, is that states are all but unshakable. And in the best case, what happens is that they lack capacity and efficiency to tackle these problems adequately. As far as the private sector is concerned, all we knew so far is what we call corporate social responsibility. It is something that is integrated in our DNA when we want to speak about positive aspects of capitalism. But the problem with corporate social responsibility is that it is a passive activity mainly. And it is usually directed to mitigate what the companies actually do, the externalities that they create to the society, and also either social or environmental externalities, and also to promote their own brand. But things have started to change the last 2 decades. And what happens is that some people started to revisit the question of the responsibility of the private sector. For example, Oliver Hart and Zingales, they discuss what the shareholders are actually looking for. And then Larry Fink from BlackRock, the largest investment capital in the world, discusses how necessary it is to have purpose in profit seeking. Then again, Michael Porter and Mark Crowder themselves, they speak about shared value, how you can exploit and create economic value through addressing social and environmental problems. And finally, and most of all, Professor Mohammed Yunus, the Nobel Prize winner for the creation of Grameen Bank, which is a microloan bank, social innovation in Bangladesh for the poor. So all these people, not that fast, all these people, they do not talk about corporate social responsibility or mere philanthropy. They speak about entrepreneurship. They speak about for-profit practices, commercial practices to solve social and environmental problems. So this trend to combine profit with purpose goes by the name social entrepreneurship. And according to Silos and Meyer, it is the creation of models for efficiently catering basic human needs that existing markets and institutions fail to do so. What happens is that this social entrepreneurship trend creates some organizational products, and these organizational products are called social businesses or social enterprises, which according to Yunus and colleagues, they are operated just like regular businesses, but whose primary purpose is to serve society and improve the lot of the poor. Now, if we go and look at the academic literature, we can spot two main streams. The one addresses the entrepreneurial aspect of what we call social entrepreneurship, where the main unit of analysis are opportunities, and the other, the strategic and organizational aspects of social enterprises, where the dominant keyword is business models, and especially typologies and the differences to traditional business models. So what comes out from the last phrase, the traditional business model, is that scholars usually, to refer and understand what exactly differs in social enterprises, they of course also use as a benchmark traditional businesses. And that is why we have to cover every dual of its social area in our literature review. Although these two streams have received very frequent visits and there is academic work, there is academic backlog, little attention has been given to the transition between what we call entrepreneurial opportunities to the business model design. And for that specific purpose, we set out to investigate what is the process of this transition between opportunities and business model design in social enterprises. To investigate this phenomenon, we conducted an exploratory multi-case study in order to inductively create new theoretical knowledge. The process we can see below and we will go through in detail, starting from the establishment of selection criteria. Now, the need to establish criteria to select the companies comes from the fact that there is not a universally accepted definition, legal definition, of what social enterprises are about. And especially even within Europe, different countries assume different entities as social enterprises. So we run into theory and we look where do scholars agree, and we found 3 points. The first one is that social enterprises have a social mission that it is prioritized over profit seeking, and this is important. Then at the same time, they use commercial means to achieve and sustain this social mission. Finally, the profits that these companies, businesses generate are reinvested in the company rather than shared to owners or shareholders, although the initial capital is usually repaid to the investors. When it comes to data collection, the main source of information were case study interviews from 3 companies, 3 social enterprises. These interviews were on the basis that had the form of semi-structured interviews where the informers were free to elaborate as much as they deemed worthy on every subject without strict limitations on time or content. As far as other sources are concerned, we had an expert interview with Professor Mario Calderini from Politecnico di Milano to understand exactly the context of social entrepreneurship, which is uncharted waters still. Then participant observations such as related events, company visits, and company service purchases. Documents such as websites, past interviews, and articles. And as a last, a personal experience of my own in an entrepreneurial activity that I had in Athens, in Greece, in a social startup. Finally, in the data analysis part, as we discussed before, it was based on inductive coding as suggested by the Joya methodology, Joya and colleagues 2012, which produced coding trees, an extract of which you can see here for one of the 3 companies. The benefit of these structures is that we grow from unstructured information which come directly from the informers into larger thematic categories and concepts, and eventually into established theoretical concepts. So in this way, we connect the unstructured information with established theory. Then, right after the creation of these coding trees, we ran our analysis, which was carried out in 2 levels, one within each case and one across the cases. Before we move on to the findings, these are the 3 companies that were interviewed, starting from Seth Jordan, which is a social enterprise that produces high-quality handmade embroideries crafted by women refugees in the Jerash camp in Jordan. Now, the revenues created from the activity of Seth Jordan are invested practically to the employees, which receive 3 times higher than market rate salaries to sustain their families and also the education of their children. And all the profits that remain are reinvested in the company in order to produce more growth. Then Bloody is an open digital platform that addresses the problem of request and offer matching of blood units in Greece, which is a major deficiency of the public sector. In order to sustain its operations, this company is selling management and organizational services to corporations that wish to organize blood collections. And in this way, practically they outsource this headache for them to interface the public sector and control this difficult topic. And finally, in Galera, which is a very interesting Italian case, you may try also yourself, it's very close to here. It's inside the prison of Bollate in Milan. It is a gourmet restaurant, and it doesn't differ in any level from any other gourmet restaurant, apart the fact that the employees are inmates of the prison, so they work there and they receive salaries for that. The prison is open to the public, surprisingly, and you can go there in a specific location and eat in the restaurant. And it receives also international fame. Recently, the New York Times wrote an article about them and how they create innovation in the penitentiary system. Now, moving into the discussion part and then within case level, for Seth Jordan, we observed that the experience of the entrepreneur has played a significant role in this transition from opportunity to business model design. And that is also the reason. That is the reason why the entrepreneur said itself that without my past experience in investment banking, I couldn't have achieved this thing. Although the experience was not industry specific, because it was in general knowledge about business models, and especially the business model design, it was very helpful. Then, the informative approach for the opportunity evaluation level resembles more to opportunity discovery. And when I say opportunity discovery, I mean in contrast to opportunity creation, the theory created by Alvarez and Barney, who speak about the way opportunities actually are either discovered or created. So this informative approach of searching about the industry and benchmarking with other competitors reflects more to discovery. Then I'm jumping into Galera, which presents a particular similarity with Seth Jordan. Again, the experience of the founder played a role, but in this case, the founder had experience in the catering industry itself. Informative approach, again, that shows it is an opportunity discovery. In contrast, though, to Bloody, that presents a more novelty-oriented approach when they search for the opportunity. They didn't know. As they mentioned, we could not exactly understand some parts of the business model from the beginning. So we had to go through uncharted waters. And that also maybe explains the fact that the opportunity recognition and the business model design phase were overlapped. So they were using the business model as a structure to understand if the opportunity they had detected was correct. And finally, the fact that beneficiaries in Bloody were external to the system, in contrast to the other two companies where they are the employees of the company, added an additional difficulty in the company that they mentioned multiple times in the interviews. Now, in order to frame these differences and similarities between the companies, we used a typology classification proposed by Santos and Tallinn, was also encouraged in the expert interview that we did, that divides in two dimensions. The first examines if clients are the beneficiaries, which is not the case for none of the companies that we have examined, and the other, the social value spillover. It's either automatic, which means that social value is delivered directly to the beneficiaries, or contingent, which means that additional intervention is required in order to deliver the social impact. And indeed, we can see that Seth Jordan and Ingal are classified as what we call bridging hybrids, while Blood is classified as a coupling hybrid. Now, moving to the level of cross-case analysis and findings that we can see throughout the three cases. The first finding had to do with the nature of the opportunity itself, and it was inspired by a phrase from Roberta Ventura, the founder of Seth Jordan, that said, there is a pool of talent, which speaks about the beneficiaries. We need to upgrade it and then identify the target client who is going to appreciate it. And in this phrase, we first saw that the opportunity seemed to have actually two aspects. They have a social aspect that seems to connect to the identification of the beneficiaries, and an economic aspect which connects to the identification of customers. So if, for example, we take Seth Jordan, the low quality of life of refugees in camps is the social part of the opportunity, while the economic aspect is that there are customers that would appreciate the handmade embroideries made by the refugee women. That opens a new window for new observations because it establishes a new perspective. The first one is that one can think this is actually what distinguishes, what separates social enterprises from traditional and non-profits, because non-profits might only have social opportunity, social aspect of the opportunity, while traditional commercial businesses have only an economic aspect. So social enterprises combine both. The second is an interesting observation, is that we saw in the three cases that the mobilization of the entrepreneur started not at the moment of identification of the social aspect, which usually precedes the economic one, but when they started searching the economic aspect of the opportunity. The second contribution now has to do with the transition as it is experienced in bridging and coupling hybrids. So in the first case of Seth Jordan and Ingalera, we saw that they were related to traditional markets, where the economic aspect of the opportunity is hard to identify. It was easily identifiable, and less experimentation in the business model design was present. Finally, as we mentioned before, we saw that the approach in order to discover the opportunity was knowledge-driven, which again, according to the descriptions of Alvarez and Barney, it echoes more to discovery rather than creation. On the other hand, Bloody, though, it is related to a new market because there is no other company at the moment that has created something like Bloody in Greece. The economic aspect of the opportunity was hard to identify as a result of the novelty of the sector. Then they mentioned that they did extended experimentation and pivoting in business model design, as we mentioned before, because some parts of the business model were not clear. And then opportunity and business model design overlap. Again, the beneficiaries that we mentioned before were hard to manage. And finally, we have opportunity creation rather than opportunity discovery, because we saw intuition and inductive decision making. So integrating these findings, we tried to propose a framework that describes the transition in these two cases. The first, what we have to observe here is the distinction of the social aspect of the opportunity and the economic one, and the fact that business model design is quite concretely separated from the opportunity discovery. Now, if we move to the coupling hybrids, there is this significant difference that we see the overlap between business model design and the search of the economic aspect. There is a forward and backward movement, which is also supported in theory. So to conclude, this was an exploratory multi-case study with three companies, which produced two main contributions. The one that opportunities have two aspects, the social and economic one. And the second one is that bridging and coupling hybrids, as we classify them, they experience a different transition from opportunity to business model design. Now, in limitations, we list the limited literature that exists, of course, in the topic, the limited number of social enterprises that were present to be available for the research, and the fact that we did not have the opportunity to include an environmental purpose social enterprise to see if the findings also apply there. As for future research, and I conclude with that, we consider very interesting a side finding that the quantification of the broader social value spillover, so social value that they create beyond their social mission, is something that has to be investigated. Thank you very much.